From her high-rise office made of glass on the 38th floor, my wife phoned me and informed me about my downsizing. She chuckled, followed by her sister's laughter. I responded with a thank you. A few days later, I found myself opposite her major competitor, and the deal she had pursued diligently for 2 years left with me. However, that wasn't the event that shattered her. The devastating incident hadn't transpired yet. My name is Lawson Whitfield, a 43-year-old individual. For 11 years, I served as the Senior Vice President of Business Development at Callaway Energy Solutions, a mid-sized industrial energy company located in a glass building near the Dallas North Tollway, where the lobby exudes an aroma of wealth, and the elevators play soft jazz to discourage conversation. I excelled at my role, surpassing expectations, but this wasn't enough for long. On a Tuesday in March, my phone buzzed while I was sitting in my truck on level 4 of the parking garage, sipping coffee before starting what seemed like an ordinary day. My wife, Helena, CEO, spoke, using the monotone she adopted during board meetings to deliver unfavorable news without appearing sympathetic. "Lawson," she said, "we're restructuring the business development division. Your position is terminated effective immediately. Human Resources has your severance package ready at the front desk. You don't need to come up." In the background, Helena's younger sister, Brianna, recently appointed Chief Operations Officer despite lacking operations experience, giggled. I overheard her say something indistinct, followed by Helena's genuine laugh. It was the same sound we shared over dinner when we were impoverished, living in a one-bedroom flat off Lower Greenville, setting aside pennies for rent. This time, however, the laughter wasn't with me but directed at me. "There's an opening in facilities," Helena continued, and I could sense her smile as sharp as a blade. "Janitorial if you want to remain connected in some way given your loyalty." Brianna laughed louder, the sound clear this time. "Before we proceed any further, I think it's important for you to know something about me. If you don't grasp who I was prior to that call, you won't comprehend what unfolded afterwards. I'm not an impulsive man. I don't shout. My father worked 30 years for a freight company out of Fort Worth, and he used to tell me that the one who reacts has already lost, but the one who waits has already won. I believed him. Throughout my professional journey, I consistently validated his assumptions, sealing deals others found impossible, as I always concealed my strategies until the opportune moment. Consequently, when my wife informed me of my dismissal and presented a mop as a token gesture while her sister cackled in the background, I remained tranquil. I didn't resort to outbursts or pleas. Instead, I offered the only response that crossed my mind at that moment, and it was sincere. "I appreciate your generous proposal." Helena fell silent, an unexpected reaction. She yearned for tears, fury, or at least the pleasure of witnessing my downfall. I denied her all of it. "There's no need for you to return home tonight either," she retorted, swiftly regaining composure, her voice resuming its icy CEO tone. "The locks have been changed this morning. Your belongings are boxed in the garage. A message will be sent to you regarding the gate code so you can retrieve them." I returned a smile. In solitude, ensconced in that parking garage with nobody else to witness it but myself, I smiled, for she was unaware of the impact of her recent actions. She believed she was terminating something, but instead she was unveiling an unknown door behind which lay every factor jeopardizing her biggest career deal. "Goodbye, Helena," I stated, and I disconnected the call first. This mattered to me, ending the call first. If you're new here, this is the type of story we share on this channel. Real individuals, real betrayals, and the point when everything takes a turn. Subscribe to not miss the next one. Comment if someone has underestimated you, as Helena underestimated me. Like this video before proceeding, because trust me, you'll want to see how it ends. To comprehend how a man ended up married to the woman who dismissed him over the phone and laughed about it with her sister, we must rewind 14 years to a coffee shop on McKinney Avenue in uptown Dallas, when Helena Callaway wasn't a CEO yet. Helena, age 26, functioned as a junior analyst at a regional energy consultancy with a keen intellect, unrelenting ambition that intrigued me initially, and an underlying fear that her father's firm, Callaway Energy Solutions, founded in 1987 by Walton Callaway, would collapse before she could inherit it. Initially a small industrial energy consulting organization assisting North Texas manufacturing plants with power and maintenance contract cost reductions, Callaway had deteriorated due to Walton's ill health and the loss of 3 key contracts over 2 years. No one within the company was adept at sealing new business deals, leaving them with capable engineers but a lack of sales professionals. At 29, I worked in business development for a larger competitor and excelled at precisely what Callaway Energy Solutions required most. At a Chamber of Commerce gathering, Helena and I crossed paths, and within 20 minutes she inquired directly about my approach towards client retention tactics, devoid of any romantic connotations. I admired her straightforwardness. Reflecting now, I believe it was the most authentic version of her I encountered. We dated for a year, married the subsequent year in a modest ceremony set in Highland Park, with her father pushing her down the aisle in a wheelchair due to his deteriorating heart condition. 2 years into our matrimony, Walton Callaway succumbed to death, leaving Helena in charge of a company teetering on the brink of failure. I forsook my employment to assist her in rescuing it. It's crucial to emphasize this, as it sets the stage for everything that followed. Left a lucrative six-figure job with potential partnership prospects, opting instead to join my wife's financially strained family business with lower pay and no ownership stake. For 6 years, I single-handedly prevented Callaway Energy Solutions from collapsing. I sealed the contract with Rayna Manufacturing in Garland that kept us afloat during our toughest period. I cultivated our partnership with Garrison Maritime Logistics in Houston, which eventually became our largest client. I spent my nights schmoozing at industry events such as the Rosewood Mansion on Turtle Creek, networking with executives who didn't recognize my wife yet, but certainly knew me. In year 4, Helena officially took over as CEO. I was her most enthusiastic supporter, cheering the loudest at the press conference. In the entirety of our partnership, I never solicited a promotion, as I regarded her achievements as a reflection of our collective success. My name on a door wasn't necessary to validate my contributions in building the enterprise. Regrettably, though, the narrative I had envisioned was overshadowed. Around year 8, there was a shift within Helena, and her sister Brianna's presence exacerbated the situation. Brianna Callaway, who had a history of unsuccessful ventures including a clothing store, wellness brand, and restaurant management, found solace with us when her own business endeavors crumbled. With newfound success, Helena, in an attempt to be generous, created a redundant position for her sister. Callaway Energy Solutions' COO admits there was no lack of intelligence in Brianna, but her sharpness stemmed from a different source. This sharpness developed as she witnessed her elder sister receive the company, the marriage, and stability throughout their lives, which sparked within her a desire for a greater share of these aspects. She began attending strategy meetings that were previously my sole domain, challenging my numerical data before the board, not because the figures were incorrect, but to highlight her perceived indispensability by casting doubt on mine. Over a period of 18 months, I observed my spouse gradually lean towards Brianna's advice in decision-making, despite my decade-long accumulation of evidence supporting my stance. Warning signs were apparent if one knew how to decipher them, and I did, given that interpreting signals was the essence of my role. Meetings that once filled my calendar began to disappear. Previously entrusted client accounts were discreetly shifted to budding account managers for growth-oriented reasons. At a Christmas gathering at our Preston Hollow residence, I overheard Brianna telling Helena's former college roommate, audibly enough for me to hear it from the kitchen, that certain individuals lack the aptitude for where this company is heading. I remained silent. I continued performing my duties. However, there's something about the situation in that house that nobody seemed to grasp. I don't engage in battles if I can't observe the entire battlefield. I wait. I observe. And 6 months prior to that garage phone call, I began discerning a pattern that neither Helena nor Brianna had taken the time to perceive, as they were preoccupied with self-congratulations instead of scrutinizing the actual financials. Callaway Energy Solutions faced potential loss of its largest contract ever, a $50 million multi-year deal with Garrison Maritime Logistics, which Helena had been personally handling in negotiations for 6 months despite my advice. Garrison Maritime Logistics is not fictional but a genuine shipping and freight logistics firm based out of Houston, operating terminals from the Port of Houston to Beaumont. The company's current leader is Thomas Garrison, the third generation of his family to lead it, whom I had cultivated a relationship with during my second year at Callaway when his father was still in charge. Thomas Garrison doesn't sign contracts with companies. He signs them with people he trusts, and for 12 years, that person was me. During the discussion about renewing the $50 million contract encompassing maintenance optimization and energy systems for Garrison's entire terminal network, Helena opted to handle it personally, without consulting me first. She explained this decision to the board as a means of establishing her own executive-level contacts. At a dinner conversation in a Knox Street steakhouse, she confided in me that she wanted to dispel the notion that the company's survival was solely due to her husband. I expressed my agreement with this. I informed her that Thomas Garrison was a specific type of man, traditional and loyal to long-standing relationships rather than temporary alliances forged quickly, and suggested she involve me in at least the later stages of the negotiation so the transition seemed organic to him instead of sudden. She did not heed this advice. Brianna informed her that my presence wasn't necessary, stating it would portray her as weak to Garrison's team, and Helena, who by then trusted Brianna's intuition about matters she lacked qualification for, concurred. Over the subsequent months, I observed from afar as Helena stumbled through one relationship after another that I had carefully constructed over a decade. She overlooked Thomas Garrison's annual fishing trip invitation, an event I'd attended annually since 2014 due to Brianna's advice. I was replaced by a junior associate at a dinner Thomas himself requested with me. Helena renegotiated contract terms without consulting the CFO first, a move typically perceived as confidence, but in their world, it appeared more disrespectful. I bore witness to all of it. I remained silent, as I could foresee where this was progressing, and a man doesn't caution a ship that no longer requires his guidance at the helm. He readies his own vessel instead. Approximately 4 months before Helena dismissed me, I received a call from a gentleman named Walter Dorsey. Walter had been my guide around 2 decades ago, when I was a 23-year-old associate in sales, struggling to grasp the correct order of a sales pitch. And since then, he'd established one of the most esteemed industrial energy firms in the Southwest, Brightwell Energy Partners, headquartered downtown in the Comerica Bank Tower. Known for poaching precisely the sort of talent that larger, careless competitors overlooked as commonplace. "Lawson," Walter said during lunch at a restaurant in the Bishop Arts District, a place with excellent brisket and dim lighting, ideal for private, discreet conversations. "I've been observing you for 2 years. I have an offer for you. You constructed the entire Garrison account without any foundation, yet it seems your wife's company may lose it due to a lack of respect for your work there." I remained silent initially, as loyalty isn't something that can be instantly summoned, even when those you are loyal to no longer reciprocate. "I'm not asking you to do anything unethical," Walter said. "I'm suggesting you contemplate the potential consequences for your career if you remain in a place that's systematically attempting to force you out, meeting by meeting." I told him I would ponder it, and I truly meant it. Over the ensuing months, while Helena covertly excluded me from a deal I had built from scratch, I began engaging in more discussions with Walter Dorsey and more direct conversations with Thomas Garrison himself, not regarding poaching anyone, but simply an old friend inquiring about how things were progressing on his end of a contract that was undeniably approaching its limit. Thomas revealed confidential details during our conversations that Helena remained unaware of. He expressed his frustration, claiming the revised contract terms seemed crafted by individuals unfamiliar with working on a terminal floor. 3 weeks before I received the fateful call in the parking garage, he openly stated that if Callaway Energy Solutions continued to treat the renewal as an insignificant matter, he would begin meetings with other companies. I did not intentionally seek out Walter Dorsey to jeopardize my marriage's business. I want this point emphasized. I sought him out because, based on my professional judgment, I could foresee with absolute certainty that the company my wife managed was on the verge of losing its major client due to arrogance, and I have always strived to never be present when a catastrophe strikes without having an escape route planned. Immediately after Helena dismissed me in the morning, I drove to a Whataburger on Northwest Highway for a breakfast taquito rather than making important decisions while driving. I spent 45 minutes sitting at a booth by the window and made only 2 phone calls. The first was to Walter Dorsey, informing him of my decision. "I'm in," I said, effective immediately. He responded with amusement. "Today?" After a brief moment of silence, he commented something that has resonated with me since. "Lawson, that woman just gifted me the best salesperson in Dallas for free." I'm going to send her a fruit basket. The second call was to Thomas Garrison, who I needed to inform directly before hearing it from anyone else. Thomas, there's something I need to tell you, and I want you to hear it from me first before anyone else does. 90 minutes ago, I am no longer employed by Callaway Energy Solutions. There was a moment of silence, followed by Thomas asking if they had let me go. They did. Another pause ensued, and then in his measured tone, Thomas asked where I was going. I disclosed my new position at Brightwell Energy Partners starting this week. Thomas responded with something that sounded like relief, asking what day it was. I informed him it was Thursday, to which he replied that Friday is the final signing meeting on the renewal contract. The deal is worth $50 million over a 3-year term and includes full systems integration across all 4 terminals. He had planned to sign it without me, given his lack of desire to start anew with someone new at this stage in life. However, now that I am no longer part of the deal, let me explain what Brightwell provides, I proposed. Relax, just facts, as usual, Thomas replied, suggesting a time. And Lawson, invite your new supervisor too. I want to meet the man who managed to hire you when someone else deemed you expendable. Upon returning home that evening, not to a dwelling anymore, but to the gated Preston Hollow community where my former home once stood, Helena's promised code text never arrived. I lingered at the gate for some minutes in the March twilight, gazing upward at the house I inhabited for 9 years, where I nurtured a relationship that seemingly held less value to her than I assumed, and a sense of understanding, no longer rage, filled me. That evening I chose a hotel beside the highway, the Highland Dallas, a decent establishment boasting a rooftop bar. For an hour I sat there, sipping bourbon alone, my mind reflecting on my father's words about the man who waits having already won. Memories of Helena's laughter over the phone and Brianna's beneath it flooded my thoughts. Yet, for the first time in more than a decade, I was liberated from the dependence on their opinions regarding me. The ensuing 3 days whizzed by. Walter Dorsey didn't merely offer me a position at Brightwell Energy Partners. He elevated me to senior partner with equity in the firm, furnishing me a corner office on the 41st floor of Camerica Bank Tower with a panoramic view of Main Street and authority to secure the Garrison account if I could finalize it. He'd long pursued Garrison maritime logistics unsuccessfully, primarily due to the lack of relationships Brightwell employees possessed, which I had cultivated over 12 years. For the Friday meeting, we treated it like a championship title fight, as its implications were equally significant in our sphere. In 72 hours, I redesigned the entire systems integration proposal anew, leveraging my 12-year expertise on Garrison's terminals and identifying where Callaway's draft had erred. Walter's engineering team verified each figure. We didn't get much rest. My lack of sleep was immaterial compared to the stakes at hand. Unbeknownst to us, Helena arranged her final signing meeting with Thomas Garrison for that same Friday morning, at the Hyatt Regency on Reunion Boulevard, 2 floors beneath our assigned conference room. Callaway Energy Solutions had reserved the room weeks ago, anticipating a swift signature and a $50 million windfall over the next 3 years. It was unbeknownst to me until later that Thomas Garrison had intentionally planned for both meetings to occur in the same building on the same day, separated by an hour. He intended for Helena to witness in real time, and without warning what she had rejected, with no script. He admitted this was his only strategy to ensure she would truly comprehend. On Friday morning, I was in the elevator going up to the 12th floor conference room with Walter Dorsey at precisely 9:50 a.m., 15 minutes prior to our scheduled 10:00 a.m. meeting with Thomas Garrison and his executive team. While Walter reviewed notes, I recalculated closing numbers in my head one more time, a routine I'd followed before numerous meetings over the years. Neither of us realized that Helena's meeting, initially slated for 11:00 a.m., had been rescheduled to 10:00 a.m. by Thomas' office that very day due to an earlier slot becoming available. The doors opened. We entered the conference room where Thomas Garrison sat at the head of the table with 2 vice presidents. As we settled in and began exchanging greetings, the door at the opposite end swung open. Helena stepped in first, followed by Brianna, both adorned for what they believed was an effortless signing ceremony. Helena was conversing with Thomas about finally closing this, when her gaze shifted across the table to me. Her expression froze. I observed it unfold in real time, the precise moment her mind comprehended what her eyes were perceiving. There, seated at her upcoming destination, was her ex-husband, the man she had dismissed 4 days prior and warned not to return home, alongside a man she clearly recognized as the head of one of her firm's major rivals. Helena asked, her voice barely audible, "What's happening here?" Brianna's self-assured demeanor faded gradually. Her sister's reaction quickly revealed who was initially aware of the situation. Thomas Garrison leaned casually in his chair as if he had been patiently waiting for this moment. He said, maintaining a polite tone, "Helena, it seems there might be a scheduling conflict. Perhaps you and your sister could take a seat. I believe there's something you both should be informed of, and I prefer that everyone in the room hears it simultaneously." Helena sat down slowly, as if her legs were not fully functioning. "I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I simply remained silent, with my hands folded on the table, allowing the silence to do the work I often used to accomplish during entire meetings." Speaking directly at the table, particularly to Helena, Thomas clarified the reason for his inquiry about timing. He has been associated with Callaway Energy Solutions for 12 years, working predominantly with one individual, Lawson. Since 2012, this relationship was developed from a cold call and became their largest managed account. 4 days prior, he learned that Lawson was no longer with the firm, which raised concerns about the nature of the partnership renewal over the next 3 years. Helena responded by explaining that Lawson was let go due to restructuring, but his departure had nothing to do with performance. However, Thomas expressed doubts about this statement and felt that Helena shared his skepticism. "However, at this moment, the man you dismissed 4 days ago is facing me over this table, representing another company and offering a proposal that addresses each worry I expressed to your office during the past 6 months, worries that were apparently never acknowledged as having been heard by anyone." Helena glanced at me. There was an expression in her eyes I hadn't seen since our early marriage days, when she still viewed me as the solution rather than an impediment. For a moment, I almost felt something for her again. Almost. "Lawson," Thomas addressed me, turning to me, "explain the details of this proposal." I did, outlining every aspect, the timeline for systems integration, cost reductions for maintenance, staffing plans across all terminals, everything I'd spent 12 years learning about Garrison maritime logistics that Helena's team either overlooked or never took the time to learn in the first place. Walter Dorsey presented concise and accurate engineering validation without any excess or unnecessary details. It was completed within 18 minutes. Throughout my career, I have clocked numerous pitches, and this one was undoubtedly the leanest 18 minutes I had ever delivered, partly due to having nothing left to lose and partly because there was much to prove. After completing, the room fell silent. Thomas directed his gaze towards his two VPs. They both gave subtle nods. "Helena," Thomas stated, not unkindly but firmly, "I have collaborated with your father's company for over a decade, but I am aligning myself with Brightwell Energy Partners today." Brianna let out a small sound, resembling a mix between a gasp and an objection, yet no distinct words were uttered. Helena merely sat there, gripping the conference table tightly, as $50 million and the most significant account in her company's history slipped away in real time, right in front of her, having humiliated her husband only 4 days prior. However, Thomas was not through. 8 months ago, your team concealed a structural issue in the engineering review at our Beaumont terminal, which you had commissioned to save costs. This undisclosed concern was uncovered by an internal memo, forwarded to me 2 weeks ago without my request by Lawson's former assistant, who felt uneasy about it remaining undisclosed. I want to clarify that no one sent me anything prior to this. However, over the course of 11 years, I had cultivated relationships with various individuals in your office, and when news of my sudden dismissal spread, more than one person shared their concerns with me. This revelation turned an already dreadful morning for Helena into something she would repeatedly revisit in her thoughts for years. "Helena, you prioritized your loyalty towards me above your allegiance to a company that seemingly disregards employee welfare, as per your leadership style. As for your operations team's decision to delay a substantial safety upgrade under your sister's supervision, it put the company at risk, potentially leading to a significant incident at Thomas Terminal. Such an occurrence would not only jeopardize this contract, but could also lead to lawsuits that might have catastrophic consequences for Callaway Energy Solutions altogether." Brianna attempted to explain, asserting there was a misinterpretation regarding the report timeline, but Thomas dismissed it, confirming his understanding and corroborating it with findings from independent engineers over the past week. Helena remained silent following this revelation. Within mere minutes, over a decade of our marriage and her profession crumbled onto a conference table, leaving me bereft of any sense of victory. Instead, I felt overwhelming fatigue, the kind that follows years of bearing a heavy burden only to finally lay it down. The meeting concluded promptly afterwards. Thomas immediately signed the Brightwell contract on the spot, securing all 4 terminals over a 3-year period for $52 million, taking into account the system's upgrade package Walter, and I had suggested to alleviate the safety concern Callaway had neglected. Helena and Brianna departed without uttering another word. Helena's heels echoed too rapidly against the marble floor of the hallway, a woman attempting to outpace something that had already overtaken her. Learned subsequently from individuals who continue our interaction more due to habit than allegiance to either party, that the Callaway Energy Solutions Board convened an urgent meeting on the same Friday afternoon. By Monday morning, Brianna Callaway was ousted from her role as COO, with the board attributing operational mismanagement in a rather lenient press statement that didn't fully disclose the truth. Within the subsequent month, 2 significant clients, news spreading swiftly across all sectors and quicker in hours, initiated discreet talks with alternative suppliers. Consequently, Callaway Energy Solutions stock, though thinly traded but publicly listed since an earlier offering, fell nearly 30% over a 6-week period. Over the ensuing month, Helena reached out to me 11 times. I let most of her calls go to voicemail. The individuals I heard from adhered to a sequence that, regrettably, stirred a tinge of sadness within me despite previous emotions like anger and negotiation. Initially, they expressed remorse in a manner similar to my wife of 14 years, pleading as if seeking a solution for something she had damaged. "Lawson," she wrote in one message, her voice frail and small, echoing the vulnerability I last heard at her father's funeral. "I understand I can't reverse what I did. I do. However, our company is in dire straits. I don't know how to salvage it without you. Perhaps a part of me always knew this, which might explain why Brianna convinced me to oust you before I had to admit it." That day, I didn't call her back. Instead, I contemplated the situation as I usually do, and a week later, I sent her a solitary message. "I wish you well in finding your footing, Helena. I mean that sincerely. But I will not return, and I am no longer the man you can rely on when difficulties arise. That chapter of our life has ended." She chose not to respond. 3 weeks later, I submitted divorce documents, and to her fairness, she didn't argue over many aspects. By then, it seemed she comprehended that there was little left worth contending for. Perhaps she too was weary. I settled in a condo within Victory Park region, ideally situated near American Airlines Center, where I could stroll to games whenever Brightwell had shared season tickets with partners, while being far from Preston Hollow such that I never needed to drive past my former gated neighborhood unless I chose to. I preferred not to do so even once. The fiscal year of Brightwell Energy Partners proved prosperous, largely due to the Garrison Maritime account, and 3 additional clients who approached us after news circulated within Dallas, Fort Worth business circles about how Callaway Energy Solutions had handled the man behind its most significant deals. 8 months post my joining, Walter Dorsey appointed me as managing partner in the business development division, offering a compensation package that acknowledged my true value rather than a long-standing loyalty gesture unreciprocated. I still engage in our annual fishing excursion with Thomas Garrison. Last year, his granddaughter, a shrewd 22-year-old MBA nearing the helm of Garrison Maritime, joined us. On the water off Galveston Bay, he shared that he wanted her to meet the only professional in this field who never provided reason for doubt. A year after my divorce, I encountered Camille Reyes, an operations director at Brightwell, whom I collaborated with extensively before either of us acknowledged a significant connection worth pursuing. She's straightforward, devoid of tolerance for workplace intrigue, and the initial time I recounted the entire ordeal, the call, the laughter, the keys, everything, she merely nodded her head slowly and remarked, "She unwittingly delivered you to your real life with both hands." This notion crosses my mind frequently. Helena believed she was concluding a matter that day in the parking garage. She believed dismissing me, joking about it with her sister, changing the locks prior to my ability to grasp what was transpiring, were all ending acts. What she never grasped What individuals like her seldom comprehend until it's too late is that some of us don't shatter when we're forced out of a door. Some of us simply walk through it, tranquilly, silently, and construct something superior on the other side, while those who pushed us observe their construction begin to disintegrate behind them. Rumors suggest that Callaway Energy Solutions regained stability under fresh management after the board appointed an external CEO, with Helena assuming a more limited advisory position. I harbor no ill will towards her. Quite honestly, I have invested too much of my life in admiration for that company and its family to desire its complete downfall, yet neither do I lose rest over the fact that the woman who publicly embarrassed me with a janitor's mop witnessed her major deal and significant portion of her career slipping away due to my actions. My father always said that he who waits has already won. I once believed winning meant being patient. I see it differently now. It wasn't about patience at all. It was about knowing your self-worth, even when those closest to you attempt to persuade you otherwise for years, and being prepared to demonstrate it as soon as the opportunity arises.